Now, many know Pasir Ris for its accommodation options and beach, but did you know that these claims to fame have their roots in days gone by?
Yeah, they certainly do. The town's legacy as an idyllic destination for locals is featured in a new heritage trail, which also highlights other elements of the area's rich history. Fariz Juraimi takes us on a tour.
Jamil Rimon grew up in Pasir Ris catching snakes, fishing and swimming in this pond, which still exists today. The 68-year-old has lived in the town his entire life, and he has witnessed its transformation from kampung to contemporary suburb.
Saya lebih suka orang mengetahui berkenaan Pasir Ris. Ya, bubarkan Pasir Ris, kasih orang tahu yang Pasir Ris ini dulu apa, sekarang apa. Jadi Pasir Ris ini satu hari akan jadi maybe satu kebanggaan orang Singapura.
That's something the National Heritage Board is trying to do. After studying the area for 1.5 years and taking in feedback from 30 former and current residents, NHB has launched a heritage trail made up of 3 routes. Each of them showcases a distinct trait of Pasir Ris. Play at Pasir Ris takes people to recreational hotspots that have come to be instantly identifiable with the town, such as Downtown East and Pasir Ris Hawker Centre. There's another route called Architectural Highlights, which takes visitors on a tour of cultural and religious institutions. These include the Istighfar Mosque, whose iconic blue domes dot the Pasir Ris skyline, and Loyang Tua Pek Kong Temple, which began as a makeshift shrine along the coastline in the 80s. Finally, the Coastal Heritage Trail features the area's prominent shoreline and beachfront, as well as other water bodies like mangroves. The mangrove forest is one of the stops which the public will visit on the Coastal Trail, one of the 3 thematic trails which spans about 3.5 kilometers and takes about an hour to complete. Overall, the Pasir Ris Heritage Trail is about 14 kilometers long.
We selected Pasir Ris because we wanted Singaporeans to know that Pasir Ris's reputation, it dates back as far back as the late 19th century, where we had private seaside bungalows and even the former Pasir Ris Hotel. We also wanted to highlight how Pasir Ris evolved from a getaway destination for the rich to an affordable resort-like retreat for holiday makers from all levels of society.
The Pasir Ris Heritage Trail is Singapore's 19th, and it won't be the last. NHB says there are plans to launch more all across Singapore, with Hougang and Sembawang set to join the list next year.
And for more, we're joined by Project Manager of the Trail, Stefanie Tham from the National Heritage Board. Thank you very much, Stephanie, for coming in. So how did National Heritage Board decide to, make Pasir Ris, part of its heritage trail? What's the significance to Singapore's history, though?
I think for us, when we chose Pasir Ris, it was because we know that Pasir Ris has a great reputation as a place for leisure as well as recreation. Today, Downtown East and all the chalets. But what people may not know is that this history extends all the way back to the 1890s. So it's more than a century old. We started with seaside bungalows, that were later rented out to, communities, societies. Then later on, from there was a Pasir Ris Hotel. Yeah, in the 1950s, it started in 1958, and then later on there's pay holiday flats and so on and so on. So that kind of legacy, that reputation, definitely had a much longer endurance than what perhaps we may know in the 1980s when the town first started. Yeah.
Were there any surprising stories that you uncovered about the area through all of this?
Yes, so part of our research was that we had to talk to a lot of community members. Some of them are old kampung residents. So I think one really interesting story was when we heard about how in the past, Sungai Api-Api and Sungai Tampines, these were the 2 rivers that bisected Pasir Ris. In the past, they used to conjoin themselves at a certain point. At that point where they conjoined themselves, that was actually teeming with prawns and shrimp. And the kampung residents back then would catch these prawns and shrimp, they would make belacan. Yeah, so we heard that, there are 2 forms of belacan that would come out from that area. It's either red color or white color, and that's dependent on the species of the shrimp that they catch.
Oh, okay. So how would you then describe the transformation of, Pasir Ris, as you mentioned there, from the 1980s, but the transformation of Pasir Ris throughout the years?
I think Pasir Ris, the transformation of Pasir Ris was certainly in tandem with the modernization of Singapore, especially when HDB came in to build, and you see it as more of a mature residential town today. But the transformation in terms of its leisure, in terms of its character and of leisure, of being a place of leisure and destination, hasn't quite changed, because from the 1800s, the early 1900s, you have a lot of seaside bungalows, like I mentioned. You have movie moguls such as Run Run Shaw, Lok Wan To also setting up, establishing their own country holiday bungalows in the area. So it was a place to get away. It was a place to retreat, because away from the city centre. And today, I would say it's still a place for retreat. You know, you have resort chalets, you have all these other company chalets, chalet houses. So I think that character has certainly endured. But of course, like the rest of Singapore, it's all modernized.
Yeah, I think one of the mottos or the taglines for the Pasir Ris Hotel was, after a long week at work, we know what you want.
Oh, yes.
You know,
yes, yes.
Which is quite charming, right? Back in the day. But I remember that area very well, because I used to visit it, and I know Glenda did as a child, visit that area quite a lot. It isn't the only trail, of course, that you have. It's the 19th.
Yes.
What kind of reaction are you getting for these trails that we have in Singapore now?
So our trails are all self-guided. I think the biggest one value that we add, by creating these trails is that we're producing content on Singapore's history. That Singapore's history is not just about, the city centre, it's not about Stamford Raffles, it's a lot more than that. You have a rich history in places as remote as Pasir Ris. You have places, a very rich history of industrialization in Jurong, for example. So these trails try to capture the character and the identity of these townships and try to explore that Singapore's history is so much more than just what we know from our textbooks.
Yeah. You mentioned about the hotel. I remember for Chinese New Year, my cousin used to live there in one of those bungalows. And, what we have right now is the park. It never used to be the park. We had to, it was a huge, mass of just land. And we had to, traverse.
Yes.
And you couldn't go very much further because you hit the
there
swamp.
Was a lot of shrubbery there.
Yeah, and then you hit the beach, right? But the boys were a bit more adventurous. They would do that. And the girls would just stay back. And I remember those were the days where we could also still play with fireworks.
Yeah.
No more, obviously. So, is it very, how important is it actually to document, such history and social memories, for, of these places, though?
I think it's certainly very, very significant, and you can see the delight of the residents, the kampong residents, or even long-time residents of the town when we ask them about their memories, because they feel that these everyday heritage, is kind of, it's still recognized, it's very small, insignificant, like I say, like the making of belacan, for example. It's kind of insignificant in the wider scheme of things, but the fact that we are recognizing it, we're documenting it, and we're trying to pass these stories down to the next generation, I think that in itself is quite valuable.
Yeah, belacan and cincalo.
Oh my goodness, cincalo. Yeah, I still have that.
That's right.
So when we walk down this trail, will there be information to guide us along as to, what, the places that you used to be?
Yes, so we published 2 collaterals. One is a handy map, so it has the entire map of these routes, and as well as it's a very quick guide, turn left, turn right, where to go. The other one is a companion guide. It's about 68 pages long of worth of information about Pasir Ris history, so that you can read up about everything we could find about Pasir Ris inside. So these are the 2 collaterals we produce. Along the way also, you may come across our heritage trail markers. So that's our information board, wayfinding as well. And also we upload everything on Routes SG, in which you can use it, on site, use the GPS and navigate yourself.
Yeah, right? It was 14 kilometers of adventure.
We did it.
So what are you all waiting for? That's what you're going to do this weekend.
It's open today already. Yeah,
of course.
Thanks very much, Stefanie, for coming in to share that with us. We've been speaking there to Stefanie Tham from the National Heritage Board. And that is a wrap.